Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. As you can see, it's not Mass Effect anymore. With me having finished the Pinnacle Station DLC from the first game, there's really nothing else in it that won't be in Legendary Edition. So we're kind of stuck waiting for that to come out, and even then when it does come out, we'll be stuck waiting for me to be able to get it and you know, get caught up to where I was with the channel. So until further notice, that game is gonna be on hold, and in the meantime, we're gonna play Dragon Age Origins. Now, this is gonna be a short video, mostly because I made a small mistake in my last video. I was gonna ask you guys to put something in the comments, and I forgot to do it. And I put it in the description, but I don't know if anyone actually read the description. I'm gonna be basically asking you guys, what do you want to see me play? I'm pretty good at any of these. I'm not great at all of them, but I'm pretty good at all of them. So, the first option here is male or female. Also, this is not the scene you're gonna see when the actual playthrough starts coming up. There will be a scene right before the character creator. Anyhow, back to getting your choices out there. We have male or female. I'll probably wind up choosing this one myself, unless you guys want me to play a human. And more specifically, something that we'll get to later on. So, for now I'll just click male. Then there's a race. We have human. We have elf. And we have dwarf. Now, each one is good at something and not so good at something else. Like, the dwarf is pretty good with the fighting skills, but for reasons that I'm not gonna get into in this video, dwarves cannot use magic. That's not to say that they're gonna be vulnerable to magic in any way, shape, or form. It's for something in the game. They are unable to actually use magic. Elves get the magical bonuses, so they're gonna be a really good magical race to play as. However, they're also pretty weak. You can definitely play like a elven soldier of some kind, but it doesn't work out quite as nicely as playing a dwarf or a human. And speaking of human, I'm pretty sure they're just a jack of all trades. Yeah, they get a little bit of everything. they're 1 strength and 1 dex. Those are both really good for different fighting styles. For the next thing we're going to be talking about, the class. On the other hand, you could play a sneaky character and go dex and cunning. It would really be up to you at that point, but yeah, humans are pretty, they're pretty good at everything but a master of nothing, unlike the dwarf and the elf, who are, the dwarf would be the master of combat, elf master of magic. Humans, they're just good at everything but not great at everything. Anyhow, I'm starting to ramble on about that subject, so let's move on to class. We have warrior, and these are gonna be your kind of like your soldiers. They're gonna be in the middle of the fight every time. They're essentially gonna be taking the most damage and dealing the most damage. Then we have the mage. These are your magic users. There's really not much else to say about them. They use magic. You can specialize in certain things with each of these that will cross over between them. Like, there's one specialization for the warrior, I think, that gives you magical abilities. But that's is something that we can talk about later on when I actually get going into the game. But last but not least, we have the rogue. These are your stealthy, can talk their way out of anything, basically. Similar to how I described the rogue being a soldier, a rogue would basically be like a thief or an assassin. They can get around easily, but if they get caught, they're gonna go down. Okay, for the sake of this, let's press A now, and one of the backgrounds is human noble. This is where the gender that I mentioned earlier will come in. If you want me to play a human noble, whether it's a warrior or a rogue, you can't do a mage noble. That doesn't work. For reasons that, once again, I'll get into when the game actually gets going. I would like you guys to actually pick. If you want me to do a human noble, tell me if you want me to do a male or a female. It doesn't have any direct impact early on, but it will change the towards the end of this game, some of what happens. And humans are the only ones that, human nobles, I should say, are the only ones that really has a gender effect on the ending. Okay, so let's go back, because as you can see, if I click rogue, it will go back to human noble. And I can go up and be a female, warrior, human noble, again. Same with if I go back and do female rogue, human noble. Now, the magi background will happen for the human and the elf if you play a mage. There's no getting around that. If you play mage, you're getting the magi background. So, there's that. So your two background choices for the elf, and it won't matter if you're a warrior or a rogue, a male or a female, you'll get these two choices no matter what, as long as you don't choose mage. And that would be Dalish elf and city elf. And I'm not gonna read what it says, I'm just gonna kind of summarize what they are. A Dalish elf, well, the elves kind of ruled the land before humans came along, and the Dalish elves are the ones that kind of stuck true to what ancient elves believed, whereas the city elves kind of to bring a Game of Thrones reference into this, they kind of bent the knee to the humans. They kind of became like the humans' slaves or something. And that's not really the right way to describe it, but that's gonna be as close to a good of a summary as I can give. And then you've got the dwarf. As I said, you get the warrior or the rogue. It won't matter which one of these you choose, you get the same two backgrounds with either of them, male or female. As long as you're a dwarf, you get these two. And they are the dwarf commoner and the dwarf noble. The dwarf commoner, the commoner dwarf is like a dwarf. He's a dwarf without a. I want to say family, but that's not the right word. He has a family, or she if you're playing a female, but what's the right word for this? Dwarves in this are very structured and hierarchical. They have a caste system, and the commoner is kind of a dwarf that falls outside of the caste system because of crimes committed by their ancestors. They can either be born common, or they can become common by committing crimes and having everyone turn on you. In this case, you were born common, and you're kind of, aside from surface dwarfs, you're kind of the dwarf that none of the other dwarfs want to acknowledge as being around. The dwarf noble, on the other hand, you are born into like the king's family. You're the second eldest sibling in the king's family with that. And of course, their society is so different from literally any other dwarven society anywhere else in fantasy, so it would be very hard to explain without actually playing the game. Well, at least without spoiling a whole lot of the game. But yeah, that's a very brief rundown on what those two are. The Magi origin is you were taken from your family, whether you're human or elf, you're taken from your family, and it's hard to give a description of this without spoiling so much of the story, because the mages are a big part of the story. Oh well, I guess I'll have to spoil this part of the story. The mages are brought up in mage circles, otherwise they're kind of they're kind of like witches. They're not really witches if they're not in the circle, but we would call them witches in real life, so that's the term I'm gonna stick with until you guys hear the term that the game uses. Okay, I already talked about the Dalish and city elves. Human noble. Once again, you're born into the royal family of the place that you live. And I can't remember if you're the elder of his two kids or the younger one of the two kids, but he only has two kids, and it's you and your brother. And as I said, I don't recall off the top of my head if you're the older one or the younger one. But in either case, that'll be that story. Is you're one of the two kids of the royal family of where you're from. And let me think here. Oh yeah, not only are you the kid of one of the royal families of the place that you're from, but you're like your family is like the second most powerful family in the land. The only one more powerful, of course, being the king and his family. But you'll learn more about that relatively early on in the game. Irregardless of if you're playing a human noble or not, you will learn about the king's family early on. Boy, that's a mess. Okay, but your choices are... Your first choice is human, elf, dwarf. Your second choice is warrior, mage. I'm sorry, I mispronounced it the first time. Mage. And rogue. Your third choice will depend on what you do with your first two choices. But you have human noble, magi. You have male human noble, female human noble, magi, Dalish elf, city elf, dwarf commoner, and dwarf noble. So those are your bunch of options for this, and I know that's a lot of options right away, and I'm gonna ask that you put it in the comments so I can actually see what you guys want to see. As I said, I'm not great at any of them. I'm pretty good at all of them. I'm not great at any of them. The one I have the most, well, I guess the two I should say that I have the most experience with are the two dwarven ones. But that's because I love dwarves and fantasy. They're my favorite fantasy race. Irregardless, I can tell you for a fact with the dwarf, despite what you may think that dwarf commoner, you're coming up from nothing, it seems like the rogue would probably fit that. Nope. Nope, you're actually a lot more rewarded for playing a warrior with the dwarf commoner. And vice versa, the dwarf noble, you'd think, oh, you're at the top of the food chain. You probably want to be a warrior so you can defend yourself as easily as possible. Again, that's not the case here. You're actually, for story purposes, more rewarded to be a rogue with the noble. Which is weird. It's weird, but I like it. Especially if you're playing a villainous character. If you're playing a villain with the noble, then you almost definitely want to be a rogue. But yeah, I'm gonna stop the video here. So yeah, if you liked the video, click the like button. Dislike the video, dislike button. This video was mostly me just telling you guys to make a vote, so I'm not even gonna say, subscribe or anything. Just, leave a comment to tell me what your votes for the race, class, and background are. And if you tell me human noble, I don't care what anything else is, if you say human noble, I'll also need the gender. It's the one background that I require a gender for. The other ones, as I said, it's not as important, but human noble, it's very important for gameplay purposes. And it might just change how I play the game. So, yeah, I guess I'll see y'all in the next one. I don't know if it'll be Dragon Age or if it'll be Mass Effect. Probably Dragon Age. But I'll